Welcome to the Bullish Drive Podcast, where we explore the realms of faith, mental performance, and personal testimonies through conversations with high-level performers. Join us as we extract valuable insights from their experiences to supercharge your pursuit of peak performance. This is the Bullish Drive Podcast. What's up, fam, and welcome to another episode of the Bullish Drive Podcast, where we peel back the layers of how high-level individuals you look up to manage their mental performance skills. I'm your host, James Driessen, your mental performance coach, and today we're about to dive into the heart of virtual reality eSports, guided by none other than the professional VR gamer extraordinaire, Venom. I have a long history of competitive gaming, from the days on the couch with my brother to my diamond ranked levels in StarCraft 2, the diamond days of Overwatch, and ranking in the top 5% in Call of Duty Mobile. I love me some good competitive gaming. And during the pandemic, I tried my hand at competitive virtual reality eSports. Now, I'm a weekend warrior at heart, and coming off of my rugby days, VR seemed to be a smooth transition. And before we strap on our VR headsets and dive into this immersive world of Venom's gaming expertise, let's take a moment to trace the evolution of virtual reality gaming. And really, the very first conceptualization of a virtual experience started in the 50s, where Morton Heilig combined vibrations, sense, sound, and visuals to add another dimension to the entertainment experience. It then moved to the first head-mounted display in the 60s. Add the infamous Nintendo Power Glove in the 80s and a spattering of commercial failures throughout the 90s. It wasn't until the research, military, and even psychology began to implement virtual reality platforms in the 2000s. For the military, VR allowed trainees to experience war scenarios without the danger of injury, no longer needing live ammunition or the cost of expensive machinery. The level of realism they could now utilize in a VR format could now meet the training needs of future soldiers. Now, my experience in the early days of VR involved psychology, and specifically trauma-focused therapy. A major piece being exposure therapy, which is when trauma triggers are slowly introduced to an individual in a controlled format to build distress tolerance and coping skills. And I witnessed and helped clients overcome fears of height, fears of spiders, and maybe the seed that sprouted into the Bullish Drive agency today, performance anxiety, all through the lens of virtual reality. And finally, the greatest breakthrough in the Oculus Quest format, a wireless, portable, consumer-friendly VR platform in 2019. From its inception, where it seemed like a distant dream, to the present day where the Meta Quest 3 and other VR platforms have turned that dream into a tangible reality, virtual reality gaming has come a long way, breaking through the boundaries of traditional gaming and offering an experience that goes beyond the confines of a screen. As we explore the landscape of VR sports, we'll be delving into the unique lifestyle of professional gamers like Venom. It's not just a pastime or a hobby, it's a way of life, and not in a cliche type of way. That extends beyond the digital realms. The three-dimensional, immersive nature of VR competition sets it apart, requiring a level of physicality and strategic thinking that challenges even the most seasoned esports athletes. One of the key aspects we'll be unraveling today is the demanding practice schedules and gaming routines that professionals like Venom have to adhere to. How does one balance the intense training required for VR esports while avoiding the pitfalls of burnout? What sacrifices are made to stay at the pinnacle of gaming excellence? And let's not forget the community that forms the backbone of the VR esports world. The camaraderie, competition, and shared passion for virtual reality gaming create a vibrant ecosystem that fuels the industry. We'll be diving into the heart of this community, exploring the bonds forged in the digital arena and the unique dynamics that make it a truly special space for gamers. Now, when Proverbs 27:17 reminds us that iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another, the idea of toxic teammates require an urgent fix at the levels of professional competition. And in my experience of VR competition, I was able to see the entire wholesomeness of its community at higher levels. 1 Thessalonians 5:11 tells us, "Therefore encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you are doing." This idea is how I first met Venom, and yes, it was 100% in the VR world. While playing on a high-ranked team, the coaches had hired him to come and give a VR workshop in our sport. Players like Venom exemplify the relationship Michael Jordan had with Kobe, a mentor-mentee mindset truly set to build a community and build up others. And with that, I am excited to introduce professional VR esports competitor Venom. Welcome to the Bullish Drive Podcast.
For those who don't know, I
was an esports player. I competed on a little team in a VR game called Echo VR, called Disc Located was my team. We were working our way up the gold, but at the very top was this little team called King Gorillas. And there's a dude on there named Venom. Chat about how you got into esports and kind of what you're doing now and what you've done in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Venom. I basically got into esports back in 2017 when I first found Echo VR. Started playing that for a while, got kind of good at it, and eventually started creating my own teams and really getting into the comp side of stuff. And from then it was all about training myself, training other players, just trying to really grow the sport and the game itself. And we made it really far. Unfortunately, some other things made it take a downturn, but I'm very optimistic for the future of VR esports.
Yeah. And VR is such a different vibe, I feel like, than other esports out there. We just had an NBA 2K player on the show, and we were just chatting a little bit about that. But we'll talk a little bit about the physical side of a VR game versus some of those couch games. Not saying couch games are bad. I love the couch games, but there's just another physical aspect to VR.
Oh yeah, so and I don't mean to ever discount anything from the couch esports players or anything like that, but this is on a whole different level. There's an entire new dimension to the game when you actually include your entire body rather than just your thumbs. So it's much different. You actually do physically get engaged. You break a sweat. Like it's an actual sport compared to, like, I used to play soccer growing up. And you're not necessarily getting the same conditioning as that, but you are getting a workout in when you play these games.
Yeah. And speaking of like just the physical games, and we're moving into like the esports, because that's what we cover too here on the show. Talk about kind of mental capacity and need, the mental wear that happens as an esports player competing at the level that you guys were competing at.
Sure. And, I think there are definitely some similarities with the other, side of esports as well, as that, you have to be focused long term. This isn't something that, you can just jump into, be relaxed, be cool, and not have to stress at all, because it is absolutely there, especially when you're playing at the top of the game. And it's one thing to get in there and, play your best and everything, but you do actually have to mentally prepare before the game even starts. And I'm sure that is with other games as well. Like it comes down to your getting in there, getting your practice shots in, everything like that before the game starts. So
yeah,
yeah.
And I'm definitely gonna have to like clip some of the videos on Echo, because I don't know how many people are familiar with the game that's outside of esports, right? Like, so Echo VR is a mix of, what would you say, like almost like hockey, basketball, and ultimate frisbee, and anti-gravity.
I think you hit it right on the head there. It's all of those. And then in VR you got your hand controls, so it's an actual every movement that you make is actually transferred into the game. It's very cool.
Yeah, what's the culture like on an esports team? Because some other games, they won't even meet their teammates until game day, because you can do this remotely, right? Or were you pretty involved with your teammates throughout practices and everything else?
Oh yeah, we for the multiple different teams that I played on, there were very different personalities for each team. Some were very hardcore strict on everything. Some were more relaxed, but it does take practice if you're going to play at the top level. So we would get in, do scrims 3 times a week. We'd have 2 matches that week or something like that. And, we'd play as much as we could together, because that you build that chemistry over time, and eventually that translates well into, scoring goals in the actual arena.
Yeah. I think something that I was surprised about when I started getting into competitive esports is the commitment to like practicing. Like you're out there practicing on a daily basis with your team almost. What did you do to develop the mental resilience to maintain that demanding schedule as far as competing at that level?
Man, it's tough. It takes a lot of your time out, and I don't know if I could have done it at the same level if I hadn't become like a content creator, because just that helps keep you involved. It helps you keep engaged with like the people that are watching your matches. and you get some reward out of that too. But on top of that, you do just get the rewarding, the benefits of working with the team and the friendships. Like the guys with Wireless Jacks, they're some of the best friends I've ever made in life. And they're all across the country, and one's in Canada. Like, you know, we never actually really meet each other aside from the LANs, but
Sure.
it's crazy, you know, the kind of relationships that you build through esports.
Yeah. Can you expand a little bit on that? Just the type of relationships. I know with my teammates on our Discord, we would have all these other conversations going, right? Like we would have like a Wordle conversation. We'd have like a dogs conversation, like what are we eating tonight conversation. Like it's a different culture in an esports team, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like we've got our nerd out channel within Discord where we just like talk about space stuff and all that, you know, just random things. And it's just ways to get to know your teammates outside of the arena, you know, to actually be able to, you know, understand them as a person and not just a figure who you are training with and, you know, working to, you know, up in the ranks with that player. So it gives them some personality aside from that.
Yeah, and it is tough because in Echo, you know, we all have these avatars, right? Like you got like these samurais floating around, these dinosaurs floating around, right? And you're just like, oh, it's you today, you know, but then they switch. So there is a different level. You can't just say, oh, I recognize the face, right? Now it's like the voice is who they are, the chats are who you are, and you actually got to meet your teammates. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been up a few times.
Yeah. How hard was it to set something up like that? Do you feel like that was essential to meet your teammates in person?
I think it was very helpful. I think we would have been just fine had we, you know, never met in person, but I think it was just something that was, again, rewarding just to be able to meet each other and, you know, actually be able to have real life conversations and go out and have dinner and drinks and stuff and hang out rather than just, you know, jumping on in your living room and you know, meeting for an hour, chatting for a bit and then getting off. So and I don't know, there's a lot that goes into building those LANs. I honestly have no idea how they put them together. It's a lot of work, I'm sure, but they are absolutely, I think, critical when it comes to the esports world.
God, that's so good. There's because it's a culture, right? You want to develop a team culture. And it sounds like you knew a lot of your teammates as you passed through your different teams. Now, when I first heard about you and you were playing for King Gorillas, you had already played for Jax and you played for Nova. How many of your teammates did you kind of carry through all the different teams that you played with?
So, I mean, every single team that I've played with has been a whole different roster. It wasn't like we carried any, into another team or anything like that. Aside from maybe, no, I don't think anybody from Nova came into Wireless Jacks. That was just an entirely, I just joined into, basically they had a 3-man team built into 4, and I joined like at the very end of that season. We went into the qualifiers and actually ended up qualifying into it. But outside of that, yeah, it was a great team. Moved into Kangarillas, and then shortly after that was when I went with the Laser Sharks for a bit. But yeah, it's been a kind of a churning through teams for me.
Yeah. Now, was that natural for you to just build those relationships, or was that something you had to kind of develop as you grew as an esports player?
Yeah, no, you absolutely have to develop those skills as well. Like you can't just go in and you know, run pubs and, you know, play in privates without, you know, meeting and actually sort of networking with players in the game. So that if you want to play at some of those top levels, they have to get to know you. They don't just see what you do in the arena. They have to see who you are as a person as well. And I think that helps when you're trying to, you know, join a team. Sure.
And that networking piece can be hard when you're just playing pubs all the time. And I feel like sometimes in the digital world, you know, it's polarized. You'll get those who are super cliquey that don't want you to join any of their teams. And then you get the other ones that are just so willing to give, kind of like yourself, where you're just out there building up players. What would a player need to do to find, you know, Venoms out there that are willing to build and pour into them?
Man, it's pretty tough. I think honestly the best way to go about it is to, you know, keep an eye out on like YouTube, the Discords. Being involved on Discord is, I think, critical for anything esports related, because that's where you're going to find, you know, your training sessions, different scrims that you can join, stuff like that. So I think between Discord, I use Facebook a little bit for like the groups and stuff, but yeah, it was mostly between YouTube, YouTube and Discord probably gonna be your best bet.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about Discord. There's kind of a stigma. So I work with a couple younger athletes in our agency, and we have these conversations with parents about online safety and stuff like that. Can you shed some light onto what exactly Discord is for parents' knowledge that might be listening to this, and what kind of safeguards are in place to keep younger players protected?
Oh man, so you might be asking
Sorry,
the wrong
loaded question.
I'm no Discord expert by any means, but basically it's an app that has basically multiple different servers that are all usually like-minded people in one location. They have different channels in there where they'll have like a general chat, a scrim server or a scrim finder, things like that. And generally they're all moderated by adults, or at least somebody who has a right head on their shoulders that they're going to keep things from getting out of control. So it's a great place for them to get in and meet people who will be able to help them out and build those relationships in the future for their esports careers.
Yeah, and it's fairly anonymous, right? Like you can make up any avatar you want.
Sure. Yeah, you don't need to go by your full name or your real name. I go by Venom on there, so it's no big deal there. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's a great way to, like you said, network and meet people. That's how I originally connected with you. It was on Discord, right?
Right.
And so it is a great place to find good people looking to pour into others. And do you have to be invited to these servers, or are these servers open for anybody to join?
It depends. There are some public servers, like the Echo Game server that originally started for the game. It's public, anybody can join it. We have specific servers. Like the player development server that we had for Echo, it was invite only. It was very strict, but there were reasons for that. We wanted to make sure that the culture in there was the right culture, that the players weren't causing a lot of chaos, that they were playing by the rules, and just putting on a good form for the game. So that's kind of the goal with that server.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was in Dislocated, then I went and started floppy disks. Not as successful as Dislocated, but still a fun server. Definitely had my fair share of having to boot people from the server. Yeah. So like we try to keep it safe and everything like that. So parents, there you go. There's your lowdown of what Discord is. When you talk to your kids, you know what it is now. Anyway, back to Venom's, like just esports gaming. Let's kind of dive into like challenges and setbacks as an esports gamer. What are some of the biggest kind of challenges you've run into competing at the level you were competing?
Yeah, so for me, a lot of it was time. As you get older and you have to start working an 8-hour job, you're doing a lot of adulting basically, and it's taking you away from time that you would rather be spending training, meeting with those other players and working with a team. So that was a challenge that, you just have to find ways to make time, whether that be, getting up early before school or work and, getting those practice shots in, doing stuff like that. There's so many different ways to really go about it, but that would probably be my main one.
Yeah. How did you motivate yourself to get onto a schedule where you had to wake up early and do those things and just be consistent with your practice? What was kind of your mental setup to be able to do that?
Yeah, I think what it came down to was, because I'm a content creator, I'm constantly watching my own footage. And seeing a lot of mistakes that I make, and it's like, okay, I need to find ways to improve on that. Let's make a plan. And I think planning is critical for anything that you want to do. It's not something you just show up and you do it, because that's very hard to keep long term. When you create a plan and things like that, it makes it much easier. So being like, okay, I work at 8, I got to get up at 6 a.m. I'm gonna do 30 minutes of shooting practice, and then I'm gonna play 3 pubs, and then scrims aren't usually going that early because it's it's a gamer's world, so everybody's a late night player. But so you get in what you can before, and then after work you come in and you do it all over again. So it's all about that drive, though. You're right.
And you were excited to do that every single day. It was always fun, right?
Oh, there were some moments, but it was. I don't regret it at all. It was a blast.
Yeah. And I bring that up kind of humorously because I just remember there were some of those practices, after parenting, after doing your work, like you said, going to work and coming home, like there's some practices where like, man, I could just say my internet connection sucked today, or like, my headset ran out of battery or something, what have you. What pushed you through those days where you're just exhausted? What got you into those practices?
Teammates. You have people reliant on you, and that is one of the biggest things for me. Is just I know if I don't go there, they're gonna have to find a sub who knows none of our plays, and the entire scrim will fall apart. And so it gives you, or it keeps you engaged with the team, and it keeps you true to yourself as far as like just showing up and making the effort to go through with things. So yeah.
Oh, man, yeah, that's so good. Teammates not showing up is a team killer. It's terrible, especially on game day. I don't know at your, like, where you guys are competing at, but there are some days where we would show up for games and like half of our team was missing, or they were late. And in competition for esports, there is a strict like time frame. Like if you can't produce a team, like you forfeit, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, did you ever feel responsibility for your other teammates to come and play? And when they didn't show up, how did you manage the team kind of response to that, like the anger side or anything like that? How do you manage those feelings?
Yeah, it's something. I'm not somebody who gets angry quickly. I try to be understanding and things like that. And I was only the captain of a couple of those teams, but for the most part it was just like, okay, something happened, it's all right, we'll move on. It happens again, okay, maybe I'll start sending out reminders. Hey, practice in 30 minutes, make sure we're there. If you can't be there, let me know, we'll find a sub for you, that kind of stuff. But yeah, if you're just no showing on scrims, it's very hard for a team to continue working with you. So yeah, if that's something, you might end up losing your team at that point. So but yeah, that
self-awareness piece, right? It's especially in a gamer's world, sometimes it's hard for just to be accountable for that stuff. It's easy to put it aside because you're an avatar, right? People don't know your face, unless you meet them, like you did.
Yeah,
so,
right.
You mentioned something about just watching your own video and seeing kind of your own mistakes. How important is that to just be constantly self-aware of your progress and being accountable for those things? What would you say about that stuff and how important it was?
I'm not gonna lie, it makes it tough when you're constantly seeing your mistakes like that. It's always on your mind, because I know, especially when I'm recording, I'm like, man, I've got to hit this shot, and then I miss it, and I'm like, well, it's because I was thinking too hard about it, I want to make a clip or something like that. But I mean, for real, it is one of those things where when you're not recording, when you're not a content creator, and you're not going back and looking at your own footage, you can move on really easily. You don't have that memory of, oh man, I just saw myself miss that shot. You can move on. But when you're constantly going back and looking at that stuff, it's like, okay, yeah, I have to be training hard so that doesn't happen again, that kind of stuff.
Right. And in game, what did you do mentally to kind of turn the page and move past some of those mistakes? Because I remember competition where we'd be playing and our teammate would miss an open shot, and then they would just bust down, like right there. They'd be like, oh my gosh, you see them drop their head, because in VR you actually see heads like drop,
Oh yeah,
and they get frustrated. So what were some of your mental plays, if you were, to respond to those moments where maybe you had a failed shot or bad pass or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's repetition. You look at a lot of other sports, soccer, basketball. If there's a player that misses a specific shot, they'll go and they'll take 20 of them. After the match, they'll go in there and they'll just, until they can hit it constantly. I did that so many times. So yeah, getting as much repetition as you can for those weak spots that you find, I think is critical for building yourself as a player.
Yeah, just getting in the gym and working out, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I like when you get into the game, it seems like, because I've watched your videos, like when Venom says he misses a shot, like it's got to be like 1 in a million shots, because some of those video shots are just, they're half court shots, like past 3 defenders. It's super impressive. How long does it take you to kind of get into the game mindset, and what were your pre-game practices to get there?
Yeah, it's that's a good question. For me, I like to get on around 30 to 45 minutes early. And again, I go in there, it's all practice shooting. I start up close to the goal, right outside the 3-point line. And, I'm basically picking points on the goal and just trying to, keep accuracy. And as I continue to make shots, I move further and further back until I'm, basically taking those half courts for, a solid 4 or 5 minutes. Now, how I go in with that is, there's some days where I'm just not on. I'm not hitting those half courts. Things just aren't, flowing right. I think every athlete has that happen. And so that'll kind of determine the way that I play that match. If I'm not hitting a lot of those shots, my goal in that match is probably to more hit my teammates, aim for those assists rather than trying to go for those longer shots, because, a missed shot generally turns into a turnover, and that's an opportunity to get scored on. And, you just want to avoid those as much as possible. So, but if I'm on it, I'm taking that shot.
Yeah. When you're on it, and you're on it a lot, so you have to be pretty flexible, right? With any team sports, because it's always about, are you playing present? Are you being a positive connection with your team and your teammates? Now, is that natural, or is that practice and built on over time?
I would say it is practiced and built on over time. And it does take that chemistry and communication with your teammates. This game in particular, it's all about adaptability and being dynamic with, your opponents. So if they're doing some specific play that's constantly breaking through your defense, you have to figure out what that is and a way to counter it. And that was one thing I think with wireless jacks, especially, they were very good about, picking out those points and finding ways to break through and work around, our opponents.
So let's what about the mental well-being of an esports player? I know in esports it can feel very isolating. Now, you're really good at building some of those team chemistry and team connections, but are there other mental health aspects to be aware of as someone going into pursuing an esports career?
I think you do have to be cautious of burnout. I think a lot of players can feel that, especially when you're in there, hours and hours every single day. You have to give yourself some time to be outside of the arena, to be, out and about, enjoy real life for a little bit, because you are very isolated, especially in VR. You don't, it's not like, mom can walk by and you say hi. You are engulfed in this headset, and you don't see, your family for, those hours that you're in that headset. So it's a little bit different there, I think, than other traditional esports. Yeah.
And there's so many other personalities too, right? There's almost no filter sometimes in video games,
Yeah, you have to be cautious about the the people that you hang out with, and not letting them drain you, and that's one thing when I was picking out players that I would play with on a team. I had to make sure that they were guys or girls that I would be able to spend those hours with, and that would not drain me as a player, and that I could move up and forward with. So
I think you said something really important there, is you got to choose your teammates. Was that or I mean a little bit of choosing, right? Can you talk a little bit about that? Like how did you decide, like, this is a group of people I wanted to be with?
And a lot of it comes down to like tryouts, setting up tryouts and scrimming with a whole different group of players. There was certainly a time when I tried out a couple guys who I was on the fence with. Like I had known them a little bit, and I went in there. I didn't want to adjust any of their play styles. I didn't want to say, hey, don't do this. I just wanted to kind of get a feel for who they were. And by the end of it, I was like, these guys are not for me. But other than that, like the wireless jacks, I got in there. They're all great guys. We all get along just fine. It's fun. There's not, bad mouthing your opponents or anything like that, which, it doesn't hurt you necessarily, but it is just kind of, it's something that you don't necessarily want to be around. There's not bad mouthing your own teammates. Like, it's just a good vibe with that whole team. And so I think that's something that if you can find it, stick with it, because you can build the skills with that team, but you can't necessarily always, change people's personalities.
Right. No, that's good. You really can't control other people.
Yeah.
Well, you can control yourself as much as you want to sometimes with your words, control somebody else. You said something about tryouts, and in my experience, I did a lot of tryouts, right? over and over again. I didn't get picked for a lot of teams, and then I got picked for some teams, you know. What can you speak a little bit on your experience with the amount of tryouts people might have to do becoming an esports player, and how to motivate yourself to just keep doing the tryouts, keep getting out there?
And it's going to come down to what level or rank of play that you're fit for. Because when you're early in the game, there's a lot of teams that they'll just take anybody, or those typically will cycle through players quite a bit. So you might make a team, but it might not last very long. As you get more into like your platinum, diamond level, that's where you are going to be trying out a lot and you're not going to be accepted quite a bit. But for those that you do make, that's where you are looking for like those people that have the good personalities that you want to be with. Because, you know, a team that's already at diamond level, they're a team that you want to probably stick with and build those skills with, because they are going to take you up to that next level. Now, master, that's a whole different ball game. That is more, I mean, you obviously have to be skilled. They're going to try you out, but it is a big networking thing and having those personalities that already, you know each other outside of just the arena. So that is where like Discord and those LAN events and things like that, where you go and meet people, that helps, I think, to find ways to get into the teams like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you do need to have good people skills and talk to people if you want to hit those high levels.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I feel like every single game also has kind of those ranks where people get stuck in, right? Like, what was the game? That Blizzard game, StarCraft 2 gets stuck in silver, like the silver grind.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I feel like gold kind of felt like that in Echo VR. That was kind of like the gold grind. You know, how do you avoid that, or is that just part of the process as you're working up through the ranks?
So, man, it's tough to say how to avoid that, other than just being able to acknowledge when maybe that team is just not a good fit for you. Because you know, you can't just move up to the next division on your own. It takes a whole team to do that, you know. So I think it comes down to just being able to, you know, on the inside know, hey, this team isn't quite going to make it for me. It's time to start doing those tryouts and looking out for a team that is, you know, in that upper gold, right on that fringe. And if they've got an opening for a player that fits like your position, maybe you'll be the one that takes them up to platinum, diamond, who knows?
Yeah, I love your focus on team and developing team, you know, because like I said, it can feel lonely sometimes. So there's so much importance in getting into that. So we are rounding 30-minute mark. I had 2 more questions for you, and you can spend as much time as you want on either one. But the first one is, what was the hardest thing for Venom to overcome as a competitive esports player?
Oh man, it's tough. I think no, it's okay. I think when you've built sort of a following, it does make it a little bit difficult when you have eyes on you more than your typical player.
That's good.
Because when you go back and you start watching those matches, and you make a mistake, and all of a sudden you see chat say, "Oh, what the heck? How did he miss that?" Stuff like that. You know, that's not normal Venom. You know, it doesn't seem like much, but it can take a toll on you. So finding ways to just move on, you know, are good for me. I think that help. But other than that, I think also on the other side of having eyes on you, it's having those eyes that are learning from you and are trying to take your skills and better themselves. I've trained a lot of kids in this game, and it's really rewarding to see, you know, what they started with and what they've become towards, you know, the end of the lifespan of the game. It's really crazy, you know, what's all come out of it.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you actually answered the second question, is what advice would you give to an aspiring esports player? So but yeah, man, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you hopping on here, and just sharing your experiences and everything like that. So thanks, man. Appreciate you. Keep killing it. I don't know what the future holds for Venom, you know, with kind of the exodus of Echo VR, but I'm sure there's a lot of esports games we'll be seeing you in the future. So
yeah, man, just at the beginning, man.
That's right. Well, I appreciate you Thank you guys so much for hopping on this episode. And if you want to learn more, reach out to me, bullishdrive.com. And Venom, is there a space that they can reach out to you if they have any questions? Are you open for that type of stuff?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can reach out to me, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. If comment on one of my videos, ask me a question, anything like that. I just got on what's that new Facebook or the Meta Threads? Yeah. I'm on there now. Venom X VR. Yeah. So.
Venom X VR.
We'll try that one out.
Which is your handle for like everything, right?
Pretty much, I think so.
Yeah. So that works. I love it. Thanks so much, Venom, for being on the Bullish Drive podcast.
Thank you.
And yes, here at the Bullish Drive Agency, we love working with esports competitors. So if you are an esports athlete who wants to evolve their mental game, you can find us at www.bullishdrive.com. You can also find us on Instagram at bullish_drive, where I post tips and tricks to keep your mental game in check. And of course, it starts with you and your destiny is waiting. Peace.